Super Mario Bros. Is one of, if not the, most iconic video game series of all time. As a character, Mario has a history that goes back nearly 40 years, beginning as the playable character in the 1981 arcade game Donkey Kong, under the name Jumpman. And since then, he's become one of the most recognizable characters in all of gaming. But as with anything popular, Mario games also have a ton of other people desperately trying to capitalize on the familiarity of the character. Games that would most accurately be called Mario ripoffs. Also, they're on mobile phones. I don't know why, but the title really wants me to specify that. The first game I'll be looking at is Lep's World. First things first, the game starts out with the story. Prepare to take some notes, kids. So Lep the Leprechaun is sleeping on his pile of stolen V-Bucks. Then a tornado comes in and steals all his money away. So your goal is to get it all back. With all things considered, it's better that they didn't go for your typical save the princess approach, since that trope has been played to death and money is very cool. This is your quintessential Mario-like platformer. You go from the end of the rainbow to the start of the next rainbow at the end of the level. Throughout your adventure, you come across many different enemies, like these bugs and snails, which are just copies of Goombas and Koopas. You get 3 shamrocks to serve as your health, and touching enemies makes you lose 1 of 3. While there aren't any full-on power-ups like in Mario, you still get an equivalent to the fire flower in the form of pine cones. You could find them in pretty much any level, and they allow you to take out enemies from a distance. You can also do 2 smaller jumps, which is a good alternative to 1 big one. The art design is pretty visually appealing, but there are a few things that annoy me. The camera moves whenever you change directions, and there's always a bunch of stuff clunking up the UI. Why do I need to see how close I am to getting to see a gambling wheel, or a download link for Lep's World 2, or Boost, or 2 different flags, or VIP, whatever that does? The levels are passable, I guess. They aren't particularly memorable, but they're still good enough to be somewhat enjoyable. The only one I can really remember is level 5. They made it an auto-runner level, and I think that was actually a pretty good change of pace to separate it from the regular gameplay. Some might say that it was stolen from Mario Run, but Lep's World was actually made in December of 2011, which was even before New Super Mario Bros. 2 had those segments. Overall, Lep's World is a solid title. You can tell that its main goal is to be a mobile alternative to Mario, but the game itself only has 1 original mechanic, that being pine cones. It doesn't really bring anything new to the table, which really just makes it a worse version of the New Super Mario Bros. Games. And I think we can all agree that we don't need more of those. Next we have Tony's 3D World. Actually, that's Spider-Man. I wonder what game they're trying to copy here. This game actually goes for the New Super Mario Bros. Art style, and they really just straight up stole several sound effects from those games. But even though the style is unoriginal, the 3D models at least look solid, but you can often see out of place grass. The animations are good for the most part, but there's a glitch that occurs when touching the flagpole at the right angle. One good thing I could say about this game is that it at least has power-ups. There's a pink potion you could drink at 3 AM, not clickbait, which makes you bigger, and there's also a fire power-up. And while the Mario games limit you to 2 fireballs at once, to prevent spamming, this game lets you spew out flames as fast as you could tap the button. The button is actually available at all times. The only issue is that it costs 10 coins to use 1 fireball, so that isn't exactly affordable without the power-up. There's also a shop where you could spend coins to get power-ups and help you out in the levels. You can also get characters. Like my man Spitty. Overall, very cool game. Please don't kill my family. The next game I'll be looking at is Sans Level Maker. I was originally gonna play another game just called Level Maker, but it's genuinely such a mess that I refuse to even talk about it. This one is pretty different from the average Mario ripoff. There aren't any pre-made levels. The game only gives you the tools to create your own, as well as the option to play random levels made by other players. Unlike the actual Mario Maker, there's no bonus game modes, story modes, or 100 Life Endless runs. That makes the game incredibly difficult to review, since the level design is a very important part of a platformer. In the build mode, there isn't a crazy amount of mechanics to work with, but there's enough to make some levels with some decently interesting gimmicks. I bet you didn't think of that one. Oh no! He thought of everything! And there's also no browsing feature. The only way for your level to be played is to either give the level ID to someone, or to have somebody stumble onto your level at random. This means that there's no way to ensure or confirm that you'll be playing any levels of quality. This also means that a lot of levels I played were not very good, to say the least. fuck you. Overall, I can't really say I recommend this game, but I also can't not recommend it. In my own personal experience, the game had some bad levels and some levels with what seems like actual effort put into them. Basically, if you don't have Mario Maker, I guess it won't hurt to try this one out. Next, we have Super Jack's World. Wait, that's not Jack at all. That's just Spider-Man from the last game! In fact, the enemies are even the same as Tony's 3D World, and the developer also made a multitude of other games blatantly ripping off more popular games. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're currently experiencing a ripoff of a ripoff. This game literally stole so much from Tony's 3D World. Obviously, you could play as Spider-Man in both games, but the comparisons go so much deeper. The on-screen controls and the tutorial for both games are identical. The music for completing a level are the same, and yes, the main character is called Spitty here too. The fire upgrade, despite looking the same, actually has slightly different properties here. Instead of giving you the ability to send hell on Earth, it instead just gives you 5 free uses of the fire button. So over the course of the game, you instead just hoard the shit out of it until you feel like actually using it. Okay, so now we're in the desert. Why are there pits of lava in the desert? This isn't even original either. This was just taken from the other game too. The more I look into the similarities with these games, the more confused I get. I'd assume that this has to be some sort of remake, and yet it was made by a completely different person. I'm still not even sure which game came first. And there are other games that are copied on both profiles. I guess the only thing I could really do is move on to the next game. So, lastly, we have Robin's Jungle World. Okay, before I get into this game, I have to dissect this trailer. So it starts out with an animation that's in about 5 frames per second. Then it cuts to some quick snippets of gameplay, which has a bunch of transitions that look like they came straight from Windows Movie Maker. And the game isn't even cropped properly here. The left arrow isn't even fully on the screen. Overall, very good trailer. So, good news and bad news. The game is exactly as advertised, which means the quality level of the game is really bad. But that could be a good thing, honestly. Having an amateur feel to a game could sometimes provide a certain charm to it. Let's see if that applies here. First things first, there's a gambling wheel. Everyone's favorite thing! Seriously though, why does every single one of these games seem to have a wheel? It's really not that great of a feature. Besides having a down arrow, the controls and features here are all pretty much the same as the 2 copied games. These bombs here act like the fire from Super Jack's World. So why are they bombs if they don't explode? Well, your character changes hat, so that's pretty cool. And you also get the option to watch ads to get the power-ups without having to actually find them in the levels. The animations feel really bizarre. The enemies move in low frame rates, but the crouching animation looks surprisingly smooth. Then the flagpole animation looks more like a keyframe than anything else. It comes across as very mismatched, which isn't helped by the visuals, which look like they came straight from Google Images. Every once in a while, you make it to the boss level. This pretty much plays out like your average level. The only difference being these spinning things, and the boss you fight at the end. And wow, this is one tough boss. You can beat him by either jumping on it several times, or using bombs. Either method works to deplete the health bar. After that, you could finally save the princess.
Thank you, Robin, but our princess is in another castle.
So who the fuck are you? These games as a whole were pretty neat. They obviously can't even compare to the official games, but they honestly aren't as bad as I was expecting. Anyways, goodbye.